the first night that we stayed in this town called Chakcharan, we actually stayed in a Taliban hotel.
This guy from MFA, an officer, called me up on WhatsApp and said, "Hey, I'm so and so from MFA. Are you guys seriously entering Afghanistan and Iran?"
So I'm here to take a quick vacay because someone just tried to kidnap me and slash my throat.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Help Desk. As always, I am your host Drew. Today I'm joined by my good friend Tarun.
Hello.
Hello Tarun. And our guests for today's episode, they are...
Nerine and Haren from All Terrain Overlanders.
Yeah, exactly. So this couple, they've been riding motorcycles from Singapore. Their plan is to go from Singapore all the way to the UK and then in the future to South Africa as well. Sounds pretty nuts.
Crazy.
Right, yeah. At the moment, they've taken a break from their trip. They left their bikes in Bulgaria and they're back in Singapore for a few weeks. And so we were so lucky and happy to be able to have them here with us in studio to tell us their story of the crazy trip that they've been on. Couldn't believe it, but they spent 21 days riding motorcycles in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And then 15 days in Iran.
Iran. They've been to a lot of exotic places across the Middle East.
Exotic, dangerous, adventurous.
There's some hairy encounters with the Taliban.
Yeah. So they told us all about that on today's episode. We also talked about how they planned for the trip, and we also talked about how to deal with, I guess, relationship quarrels when you are on a long-term trip like this, as tensions might rise. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for joining us once again. Dial up the tubes, Tarun. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show and being here, making time to be here in your short time in Singapore.
Thank you.
How long have you guys been back for now?
It's been about 2 weeks. We reached Singapore at the end of the year last year. So we managed to celebrate New Year and now we're looking forward to Chinese New Year.
Okay, yeah. And what's it like being back in Singapore? Is it a weird feeling? You've been on the road for how long?
About 11 months now. And I think the biggest difference for me is that while we've been on the road, just both of us, for 11 months, we've had the freedom to decide, our route, how much time to rest, and, where we wanted to go. But now being back in Singapore with family, friends, we've just got so much to catch up on with them, having these sharing sessions, podcasts. So it's been very hectic for me here. But of course, I'm enjoying the times where we, indulge in local food and all the mala and chili and
What was the thing you missed the most? Traveling.
Well, personally, I've really missed Milo, man. So actually, whenever I've had the chance, I've asked whoever's coming to bring Milo powder along because it's such a difficult thing to find, surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah.
In Afghanistan, they're not enjoying
definitely
all the
not.
taste of Milo.
Definitely not. And even in places where people really like chocolate, like in Central Asia, you'd see supermarkets just filled with sweets and chocolate, but no one is into hot chocolate or Milo there.
Serious?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I had to kind of introduce it. Maybe I should start a new business doing that.
Yeah, exporting Milo to the Taliban.
Something like that.
Milo powder.
That could really bring peace to the region, I think.
Yeah, I think
if they
so.
found out about
Here's a big
Milo.
old Milo dinosaur. Stop killing each other.
Okay, wait, we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves. Let's start at the start. How did you guys meet, and where did this idea for this big motorcycle trip come from?
So basically, during COVID, I was working in mud motorcycles and I was just starting work there. And one day I received a message from a friend saying, "Hey, I have a friend who wants to learn how to fix bike." I'm like, okay, I introduced him to me. It's not a he, it's a she. Anyway, she'll get in touch with you. I'm like, okay, cool. So next thing I receive a message from Nerine. And Narine's like, "Hey, hi, I want to buy a bike and I also want to learn about the basic repairs and servicing of bikes and stuff." I'm like, interesting, why do you want to get to know that? So Nerine at that point had done a couple of tours on her own and had broken down in the middle of nowhere and stuff like that. So we got in touch and then we ended up going out together for a coffee. What was supposed to be a 2-hour meeting became a 6-hour session of exchanging travel experiences and talking about bikes and things like that. And then gradually one thing led to another. So we ended up just meeting up to not only ride, but to talk about bikes. and decide what bikes she wanted to get.
Yeah.
And actually, fun fact, my very first owned motorcycle was a Mutt.
Oh,
It was a
okay.
Mutt Mastiff 250.
Yeah.
And at that time, we had really great fun riding around, Singapore. At that time, it was lockdown as well. So riding around Singapore, exploring the corners of like Kranji, Lamppost 1 in Tuas, went all the way to Changi, and down in the south to Sentosa, things like that. And we also discussed, what our dreams or aspirations would be once borders open. And we're both very adventurous, and we love traveling at heart. So I asked him, what's your plan? After borders open, what's your dream? And he said that his dream was to take his KTM 500 from Singapore and ride it to India,
Okay.
where he's got a house and family business there. And I said, well, for me, I wasn't that much into motor touring at that time because of my lack of technical skills.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I like to do some van life in Europe. So, buy a customized van in probably Portugal or Spain and then just drive around.
Yeah.
And then we were thinking, that was when we kind of got together, got closer, and we thought maybe you can do this big trip together by riding from Singapore all the way across to Europe. Because from India into Europe would just be crossing Pakistan and Iran. And then the next country would be Turkey. So why not just go all the way?
Pakistan and Iran, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Then eventually, as we started planning, what happened was the Myanmar-India border never reopened.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to drive through China instead.
Right.
And the tour through China then exits China in Kyrgyzstan. And that's where we thought, okay, let's go explore Central Asia. We gave ourselves initially only 1.5 months to explore Central Asia, but we ended up spending practically most of this year there
Yeah.
because it was just so beautiful and there's so much to explore.
Yeah. Let's rewind a little bit, right? So you guys started this trip 2024.
Yes, 20th
Yes.
January last year, 2024.
Yeah. What's it like to plan for like a trip this big? Did you realize how long you were going to be away for?
I think we tried to be realistic as well, managing expectations of our families at home. We gave ourselves 2 years from Singapore to the UK.
Okay.
So mainly Asia and the European continents.
Yeah.
But, plans just change along the way. Actually, by now we should have been in Morocco. But, our bikes are only in Bulgaria. And that's when we realized halfway in our journey last year that we enjoy the pace, the slow pace of traveling, exploring corners of each country. So, well, now we are deciding to extend the trip by another year and exploring Africa as well.
Okay. Yeah. Nuts. And like talking about the planning for that trip, right? Like you have a route planned out, right? Is that am I correct in saying that? Or is it like every day you're just thinking like, how do I get from point A to point B, and then you're Google mapping it?
Okay, at least for country to country, we know what the next country is.
Okay.
Generally
From the
that
start.
way.
From
Not
or
so.
you're figuring it out
Maybe
on the go.
2 months prior, we know, okay, which is the country, a list of countries you're going to go next.
Yeah.
But for example, Afghanistan, that was pretty last minute. We decided, 1 month before we actually entered. And even Mongolia, we had no plans on detouring, 3,000 kilometers one way from Almaty, which is in Kazakhstan, up north through Russia to Mongolia. We had no plans to do that until, we spoke to some overlanders who told us that, hey, Mongolia is actually a wild place to travel to. Since you guys are here in August, temperature and weather is going to be great there. So why don't you go there, then suffer the 40-degree heat in like Iran, in Afghanistan or Uzbekistan. Yeah. So things change along the way, and we are very fluid and flexible with our plans
it's pretty
as well.
spontaneous. It's pretty fluid. Honestly, like people ask us, do we book hotels in advance? Do you just rock up? And like we practically rock up every single night.
Serious?
Save
Okay.
for maybe 5 to 10% of the time. Usually we're just rocking up. And how we plan is we usually go with where we want to go. We keep reminding ourselves as we go along that we might never come back to this part of the world again.
Okay.
And even if we do, we'd probably not have our bikes with us, which allows us to explore wherever we want to go, right? On our dirt bikes, we are not bounded by the kind of road or, other factors that could influence you if you just rent a normal bike or a normal car. So we remind ourselves, hey, this might be the only time we ever come here in this situation where we are so free to explore. We're not constrained by time. We're not constrained by our mode of transport. So sometimes it's like, okay, do you think we'll ever go there again? Probably not. So we should probably do it this time, and then we just go for it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys missed out on like a sponsorship from like Agoda or something like that. If you were like booking all your hotels.
Wow, if we had those like 4 to 5 star hotels from Agoda booking.com.
You can get cheap hotels on Agoda, like some
I
pretty
think
bad
so.
ones as well. I've had that experience.
Mm.
So you rock up at a hotel on the day itself, and like what happens if there's no like vacancies, or like, are you ever worried about that?
Yes, especially for those small villages or towns.
Yeah.
When we especially visit during off season, and that actually happened once to us when we were in Thailand, northern Thailand, in this area called Puchifa, which is quite near Chiang Rai, and we went during the burning season where farmers had burnt all the dead crops and land to clear the land for the next farming season.
Yeah.
And on Google Maps, it showed so many hotels. It was like a crowded touristy place. And they were also available on booking.com for
Okay.
booking. But we decided to just rock up and try to negotiate. That's what we normally do. We don't really book on booking.com, but we would rock up and negotiate prices there and then.
Yeah.
But we realized that like 95% of the resorts or the homestays were all closed. So we desperately, moved from places to places. We even had to split up. And I told Haren, okay, you explore this street, check out if there are any homestays there. I'll explore another street, and we just ring each other up if we find a place. So there has been circumstances like that as well. But if not, our planning is also quite robust in the sense that each day I will bookmark 2 to 3 hostels or guest houses, and then Haren would just navigate our way through once we reach the town or village.
Okay. So are you the itinerary setter and Haren is the navigator?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's
Okay.
kind of the split of responsibilities we have.
Interestingly, actually, we never really had like defined scopes of roles and responsibilities around this. It just fell into place very naturally. Like, okay, these are the attractions. Now look at the GPS map and find an interesting terrain to get there, and that's what he does.
I mean, is it expensive traveling like that, or does it get a bit cheaper when you're sort of like rocking up to hotels at the last minute and negotiating?
I think for accommodation specifically, we've got pretty good deals when we rock up there and then, because we can check out the different types of rooms. Usually at homestays, the owners would bring us to the more expensive and luxurious looking rooms. But I was like, no, let's find a more basic one, maybe without an ensuite. And that's also where we can negotiate for without breakfast. So we aren't really big on breakfast.
Okay.
Right.
Like sleep. Do you like to sleep in?
We like to sleep in a little bit, and we normally have like lunch, and then we ride throughout the day, and then just dinner.
Okay.
Sometimes we have a heavy breakfast and then ride like for a longer time throughout the day and then dinner. But we know that once we shave off the breakfast cost overall can go down as well. So we
Interesting.
prefer to negotiate that
Sorry,
way.
just to check with your question, did you mean in a general sense or just specifically what tactics we use for saving money?
Yeah,
with
like
hotels?
actually, like what tactics you use to save money?
Oh,
'Cause
okay,
I,
gotcha.
like also, I
That's-
mean, trying to imagine myself trying to go to like a hotel reception and negotiate. I don't think I have can overcome my social anxiety to go and
Yeah,
bargaining
I'm
with
confident of
like.
Well, we are Asians. We are basically born to negotiate these
That's
things.
true. I didn't get that side of the
Yeah,
Asian.
it was really interesting actually. So when we were traveling, we did this technique practically all the way until we reached Europe.
Okay.
And then at Europe, we
Right.
realized people didn't really take very kindly to us, asking if we could shave off a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
Because I think in Asia, it's pretty much part of the relationship building, right?
Yeah.
To negotiate and to bargain.
But how does that go? It's like you're going there and you're asking them, say, for like a room on like a smaller
usually-
room or something like that.
Usually
like
I ask one night for a couple, how much? And they may say, okay, $30. Does it include breakfast? Does it include, Wi-Fi, ensuite? If it's all yes, and I'll ask, how much is it without breakfast? And
Right,
sometimes they
right.
say, no, breakfast is already included in the cost. And I'll just, try to negotiate and say, oh, we don't really eat breakfast, then I will offer my price.
Right.
Yeah, and that's how we negotiate from
Okay.
there.
And like what you said earlier as well, sometimes you rock up and what they offer you first is a higher class room. And
Okay.
sometimes we don't need such a huge room with
Yeah.
all the amazing amenities. We're just looking for something that's value for money
Yeah.
and within our budget, right? So sometimes you just go there and say like, okay, is this your best room? Do you have a lower room? Do you have a lower grade room? We don't have so much budget, blah, blah, blah. And we just use that to kind
Right.
of bring the price down.
Yeah.
So the whole reason why we know all this and we spend a lot of time in hotels is this year we didn't carry any camping gear with us. So it is a bit of a challenge that way, in the sense that we got to reach a place to stay
Yes.
by the end of every evening, right?
Yeah.
So our packs are very light. We can move pretty fast, pretty far, and consistently with our dirt bikes.
Mm.
But the thing is, when we reach somewhere, we need to reach somewhere by the end of the day. And that might mean a guest house, that might mean an Airbnb, that might mean a hotel, that might mean a hostel, that might mean a random yurt.
Yeah, have
or
you
a
ever tried
random
like
restaurant?
asking a random person, hey, can I just sleep the night at your house and I'll pay you, I don't know, this amount of money?
Almost.
Almost.
So I wouldn't say that we actually slept in his house. We actually slept in his bed.
Oh,
But-
He just cleared his own bed and told his wife, let's sleep in the kids' room.
geez.
And he
Okay.
let us
What
have
country
that
was
space.
this in?
This was in Mongolia.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mongolian
yeah.
hospitality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you get into that situation in the first place?
What happened was we had just crossed the border from Russia into this tiny little town called Saganur, which translates to White Lake.
Mm.
And in Saganur, we were at the mama shop, practically the one mama shop
Yeah.
in that little village. And we said, hey, is there a guest house or a hotel or something here? And then the guy was like, yeah, the cashier was like, yeah, let me make a few phone calls. And out comes this guy and he's like, yeah, I actually offer my house for tourists to sleep. Not for free, of course.
Yeah.
But then he was like, this is what I do because there's no real guest house here.
Okay.
Right.
So that's how things panned out. And of course, he showed us around to his cousins who were like rail nomads.
Yeah.
So he took us for a drive out to his
Yeah.
cousins,
Ah, so
and
cool.
they made like dinner for us and breakfast for us before sending us off the next day.
Yeah.
So it was a really intimate, really nice way to get to know how the locals lived.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that we get when we stay with people this way,
Yeah.
we are not so much campers yet. We have to reach society or civilization of some sort at the end of the day.
Mm.
And sometimes it's places like this.
Okay, I heard you guys speak about, you've mentioned budget a few times, and obviously we're in Singapore, so we need to ask about the practical concerns.
Yeah.
How much money do you need to do like a 2-year trip? You guys were planning for 2 years, 1 year in, and how much money did you have to save up to do something like this?
Okay, so our daily expense is 60 Singapore dollars a day
Okay.
per
Per
person.
person.
Yeah.
Per person. The average accommodation we've paid for is about 35 Singapore dollars total for the room.
Yeah.
So that's like $17 a day per person.
Yeah. What's making up the bulk of that $60, you reckon?
Food. I would say food. We
Okay.
actually do not hold back on food.
Right.
We know we'll have our dessert, our afternoon coffee, maybe 2 of that. We have ice cream.
Nice.
Okay.
I think that's also why we've put on weight.
Yeah.
So don't think when you're going on a bike journey, you're going
Yeah.
to lose weight and all that. No, you're actually sitting on a bike most of the time.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Unless you go off-road, that's a workout.
The wrists are getting a real workout.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes. The core, a bit of that as well. But you eat a lot,
Okay.
So food is the bulk of the budget. Petrol cost has been, quite low in general because the last few countries, especially through Central Asia, Russia, especially Iran, where a full tank of 15 liters of petrol, cost like 25 Singapore cents.
Yeah.
But in general, petrol was cheap.
Mm.
So accommodation, the cheapest accommodation we had was a little wooden chalet of $7 a night for both of
Okay.
us, without breakfast, just a chalet.
Yeah.
And that was in Thailand. The most expensive one was 155 Singapore dollars in
Wow.
Mongolia.
Okay.
In Mongolia.
Right.
That
What are we
was
talking
a,
about here? Like a Holiday Inn or something like that?
No, not that. It was a yurt, but
Okay.
it had its own, private hot spring.
A fancy
and things
yurt.
Like that. It was a fancy
Yeah.
yurt.
5-star
It's a
yurt.
luxe.
5-star yurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Airbnb experience.
That took us by surprise because we thought that in a yurt camp or homestay it would be cheap, maybe around 30 USD at most. But it was quite a popular tourist mountainside town
Yeah.
with all these natural springs. So I think they capitalized on that and raised the prices for accommodation.
Haren, you were working at a motorcycle shop before you started this trip. Nerine, what were you doing?
I was a legal counsel in TikTok.
Oh, okay.
TikTok bike dance.
Yeah, interesting. And so was it? How did you guys get the balls to quit your job to do something like this? Because Singapore, like, in Singapore, not many people would dare to do something like this, I feel.
I go first.
Yeah,
Okay. My mind was already set on doing an adventure for myself way before COVID. I would say when I was 23 to 25, that was when I told myself by the time I hit 30, okay, I'm actually past 30 already, but I told
Yeah.
myself by the time I hit 30, I have to do something for like personal growth, personal development. It can be a solo adventure, or it can be with a partner. And I actually never thought that it would be a motorbike trip around the world.
Okay, yeah. You want to do the van life thing.
Something like
yeah.
that. Yes. And I was already committed from the start. And when things just came to place towards the end of 2023, I was working towards leaving my job, saving up. There were lots of preparation done for buying the bike, modifying them, training our off-road skills and things like that. So preparation in terms of mental and also financial logistics and all that were all already had already started for me
Yeah.
quite a few years before.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, I already knew I wanted to ride to India. Kind of set aside that time in my mind already, but at the same time, I knew that sooner or later I would want to do something bigger than that. And then when Nerine came along and said, "Hey, let's do this trip," I was like, it's better now than later on, right? Because we're going to get all these amazing experiences. We're going to be able to pretty much invest in ourselves for 2 years, learning about the world. And it's better you do it when you're younger, and then you can take all this experience forward as you mature, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it wasn't a difficult choice for me to make. I didn't have that many responsibilities or anything, so I was like, you know what? I've got enough savings. I've got the bike. Let's go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think you have to be rich to do something like this? I mean, I'm just thinking of the kind of questions that people will ask, right?
Not at all. I would say that you can definitely start small by doing short trips from Singapore to Cambodia, to Laos,
Right.
Thailand.
Yeah.
And these are trips where you can, make an amazing adventure out of. You don't
Yeah.
have to travel the world or travel to Europe. You don't have to fly to Switzerland and rent bikes for like $300 per day. There are so many adventures that can help you grow as a person and expose you to so many different local communities to help humble yourself down and realize, wow, we are so privileged to be to have the education, to have the stability in our lives in Singapore.
So this is one of the many talks that we've done actually in this little short period of time we've come back to Singapore.
Yeah.
And after one of the talks, I had a very interesting remark from one of my friends, which was, "Bro, you spend $60 a day. That's like less than how much it costs to survive in Singapore." And I'm like, well, yeah, it is less than how much it costs to survive in Singapore. Now, the thing is that we're doing at $60 a day. We are staying in decent places, sometimes not so decent, but usually a decent place.
Yeah.
And then we've got bigger bikes, which take more servicing. We are purposely going off-road to find more adventurous locations and stuff like that,
Yeah.
higher wear and tear and so on. But you see guys who are just on bicycles, right? Like once you start to get out there, you'll see guys who are on bicycles, guys who are on electric skateboards,
Yeah.
and their budget is like
I got
almost
cross-country
zilch.
electric skateboarding.
Yes.
from China to Singapore.
Yes,
riding
definitely.
electric skateboard.
Gee,
You know,
okay.
guys on little tiny bikes, and they cross entire countries without spending money at all. Like just staying in their camp, foraging food or just surviving on Maggi noodles.
Yeah.
So you can do it on a real shoestring budget once you get out there. You can do the research, you can get some hints and tips, and you can actually do it on a really tiny budget. So
Yeah.
to answer your question, if you want to do it, it can happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. I want to ask, going back to the hotels thing, right? Because you'll go to different hotels or guest house or whatever, and I suppose you'll check it out if it's to your liking. What's like your non-negotiable with like a hotel room?
Okay, it's the bed.
Okay.
So, because we ride almost every day, or
Yeah.
we have quite an active schedule, like the next day if we don't ride, we have to get a good night's sleep. So it's a very weird thing we do, but whoever goes in to check or like do a spot check of the room with the owner would actually go and press the bed.
Okay.
Sit on the bed and
Right,
bounce a
right.
little bit to see whether it's too soft,
Yeah.
not too hard, and it's comfortable.
Yeah.
I think we can cut back a bit on if on cleanliness, some places like yurt camps, they don't clean the sheets every day, but
Yeah.
we're not too fussy on that.
Right.
It's okay if we, use a drop toilet, like what you see in China or Central Asia where it's just a
Just a
hole in the
hole in the
Down on the
ground,
ground.
Yeah.
and you see all the junk and dirt down there piling up,
Yeah.
things like that. We are okay with that.
Yeah.
But it's the bit mainly.
Right.
Wow.
And
Okay.
if we go to a city where we have heard that bike theft, the rate of bike theft is quite high, then we'll ensure that we have to get a place with private parking.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. And so, what's that? I don't know. I feel like I would feel so almost embarrassed. Like if I went into the room and then I didn't like it, and I'm with the owner or something, then I have to tell, oh no, I'm sorry. No, like,
No, we have no qualms about doing that.
Very
we just say
callous to that
sorry,
experience
this is
We
not
can't do
suitable.
it.
So the thing is that I used to work in hospitality earlier,
Yes.
and I'm a hospitality graduate as well.
Right.
So the moment I see a hotel is not up to the mark, it's obviously not being cared for, there's no passion in running the place, I just either walk out or I'm very straight up with like, okay, bro, you're gonna have to give me a cheaper price because this is not up to standard.
okay.
I'm a bit harsh like that, but
Yeah, yeah. What's the
in a
number
nice
one
way,
red
in a
flag
nice
for
way.
people to look out for a hotel that's not being well taken care of, or that you wouldn't want to stay in? Apart from the bed, I mean, obviously for you it's the bed, but are there any like things as soon as you walk into the place, you look at the room, you're like, okay, red flags, alarm bells going off, this will not be a good place to stay.
Easy. I would say the attitude of the receptionist.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go in there, at least he seems like on the ball, even if the place isn't the best, but he seems like on the ball, he seems like friendly or whatever, problems can be solved if he's attentive. So you can be like, oh, it's not so clean, and the sheets don't look very well made, can you redo it? He will be able to redo it for you. So those are okay. But if the receptionist himself or whoever's there is not interested in really having your business, then that's a huge red flag. Get out of there.
Okay, let's talk about the trip itself. Can you tell us the countries and the journey, like lay out like that, the journey that you guys have been on so far?
You wanna
Started in
start?
Singapore.
Okay, starting in Singapore, we spent about 3-4 days in Malaysia. Then we spent 1.5 months in Thailand, 1 month in Cambodia, 1 month in Laos. And I'll just pause there because that is just Southeast Asia, and
Yeah.
we spent a good 3-4 months. And we took 25 days to cross China. That was on a tour, and it ended in Kyrgyzstan. From Kyrgyzstan, we went into Tajikistan and took the Wakhan Valley, which is a very interesting remote part of Tajikistan that borders with Afghanistan.
Okay.
And after Tajikistan, we went back to Kyrgyzstan, went to Kazakhstan, back down in Kyrgyzstan because we had some friends and family joining us for some trips. Our route didn't really make sense there. But
Yeah.
after Kyrgyzstan, we went up to Kazakhstan and made the decision to go all the way to Mongolia. So from Kazakhstan, we went up to Russia. We had a transit visa to cross Russia for about 10 days, and we entered Mongolia for 5 weeks. Back out the same way down to Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Iran. And from Iran, we went up north to Armenia, Georgia, then down to Turkey and Bulgaria.
And what's it like a day to day like for you guys? I mean, is it just riding from point A to point B? I'm sure you're stopping at places and exploring and stuff like that, but what's a typical day like for you guys?
So the typical day depends on whether it's a day where we need to get somewhere or whether it's a day where we're spending a night in the same place,
Okay.
right? Now, the beauty of the way we've been traveling is that we pretty much make it up in that morning, whether we
Nice.
want to go somewhere or
what you
not.
feel like doing?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So within of course visa constraints,
Yeah, yeah.
constraints and stuff like that. So if it's a day where we're going, usually we get up, we have breakfast. We know roughly maybe it's a short day, 100-kilometer day, maybe it's a long day, 350 kilometers, 400-kilometer day. So accordingly, we'll decide when we want to leave, pack our stuff, decide which stops along the way we want to stop at,
Okay.
or
okay.
where we might stop for our next break, for example, if it's lunch or something like that. And then we pack everything on the bike, check out, and push off. And then we get on the road, stop at whatever pre-planned stops. But of course, if we see something interesting on the way, then we just stop and swing around and have a look at it.
Okay.
That's the, because with the bikes, you're just so maneuverable, right?
Yeah.
So we can just rock up, pull up onto a curb, park the bikes, have a quick, get out our drinks or whatever, have a quick
Yeah.
look around. and carry on. And then finally, at the end of the day, we'll decide, we're going to stay here for the night. Sometimes we don't even know where we're going to end up that night. Right?
Okay, what
Yeah.
do you mean? Like you're not sure whether you'll be able to reach your destination on time?
Yeah, so
or-
like sometimes we take longer than we expect because we've been seeing so much stuff along the way which we didn't think we would see or need so much time for. So then we just stop earlier if that's the case.
Right.
We try to avoid riding at night. What happens is that if anything breaks down with the bikes or there's an accident or something like that, it's difficult to get help at night. Even if a bike breaks down, even if it's a simple thing, now you're doing everything in the dark, right? You're going to start having to repair the bike in the dark. There'll be less traffic on the road, so people might not be inclined to stop for you, to help you out. So we generally avoid riding at night.
Okay.
So we wrap up everything before sunset or well before sunset.
Okay.
And then call it a day.
So how long of riding is that potentially in one day? It's like 12, 10 hours, 8 hours?
I would say so on some days it might just be 100 kilometers of distance to cover, but we might take 10 hours the whole day because there are just so many things to do along the way.
Yeah.
A waterfall to swim in, or a hike to do. But on average, in terms of mileage, we have done about 150 kilometers a day. Because 11 months, 332 days, we've done 50,000 kilometers.
Wow, okay.
I'm not a biker, but like, does your back hurt or like, is it
butt
uncomfortable like sitting
hurts.
like your butt hurts? after, like,
Yeah.
Yes.
It's actually really interesting. So, number one, we definitely adapt.
right.
So the more time we spend riding, the more time we can spend riding. Right.
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's one. Number two, you think that the days where you're riding for a very long period of time are going to be the days where it's really tiring or your butt hurts a lot, but it's not. It's the days where you're just stuck in the same position riding.
Right.
So there are some days where we've been riding for maybe 15 hours, but it's a mix of terrain. We've got some off-road, some on-road, some easy
Right.
sections, some difficult sections. So we're constantly standing up on the bike, riding it off-road style, and then
Yeah.
we're sitting down again. And if the weather is good, you don't feel tired at all. You can ride the whole day and you don't feel tired.
Yeah.
And other times, the weather's hot or really cold, and you're just stuck on the highway, just scooting along. So then, your butt starts to hurt after a while because you're just stuck in that same position the whole day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it dangerous? I mean, because here we see like reports of like motorcycle accidents all the time, and like motorcycles classically dangerous way of transportation.
Yeah.
And you guys are
I think in overseas or where we have actually been to, the roads have not been such, have not had such high volume of traffic,
okay.
not so congested. But the only place where I felt that I would highly likely meet an accident was in Iran, is because of the drivers there. The drivers have zero lane discipline, so they're always cutting each other on the
Yeah.
roads and very unpredictable
Do
way
they
of
signal?
driving. No, not at all. Not at all.
They go by intuition. It's like a vague feeling that.
Yeah, and other than that,
Exactly.
in like Central Asia, Mongolia, it's not really the traffic to watch out for, but rather the animals.
Yeah.
Right.
The herds of sheep, the random camel that decides to dash across the road. Tajikistan was funny actually because the locals there are not used to bikers. Like locals don't really use motorbikes themselves.
Okay.
So what I was really terrified of was those shepherd dogs in
Yeah.
farmlands.
Right.
They weren't used to the sounds of the exhaust pipe, and they would just like sprint across the field 200 meters just to chase us.
Oh no.
Yeah, and
okay.
I was really terrified of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they
Yeah,
would
yeah.
come like full speed out from the bushes, out from the farm, wherever they were,
Yeah.
to chase the motorbikes.
Oh gosh.
Because
And-
they're unfamiliar with the sound.
Yeah,
of the
they just
mic.
thought these things like, probably a natural instinct to protect the herd or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they would just come out dashing from the
Yeah.
mountain sides and wherever to pretty much get at us.
Any
Yeah.
close shaves like in
Yes.
terms of accidents?
You rolled over the
Yeah,
dog,
I
right?
actually kind of hit it because it was.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it survived. It was just a
Okay.
brush, but it actually dashed out to chase you because you were in front. Nerine was in front, and then I was like, "No way!" And I was right behind her, and he stopped like in the middle of the road like that,
Oh.
and I just managed to swerve, but my boot actually like brushed it,
Okay.
and I think he kind of ducked and then ran off.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a close shave. That was
Yeah.
a very close
Yeah.
shave.
I had a close shave with a chicken. That was strange. That was in Laos.
Yeah. Okay.
Like just dashed out of the trees, tried to cross the road.
Oh,
Yeah.
But it did
Like,
indeed cross the
okay.
road. Yeah.
Wow, so all the
So-
accidents that you guys almost got in was more animals than
Yeah.
actual vehicles
Yeah,
itself.
it's
Yeah.
definitely in my experience riding in India as well, and maybe in Vietnam as well. Animals are the most scary thing
Yeah.
out there. Like
Yeah.
at least humans, if you horn at them, they'll understand,
Yeah.
they'll get out of the way. But yeah, animals, they have a mind of their own practically.
Yeah.
Yeah, where was it like hardest riding in terms of terrain, like when you were traveling? And like you guys crossed through Afghanistan, right? Like that's famous for its like very rocky, kind of like
Yeah.
hilly terrain.
Yeah. So interestingly, if you try to get from one side of Afghanistan to the other side and you plug it into Google Maps, it shows you this road that goes literally right across Afghanistan.
Right.
And this route has been known to be called the Central Route.
Yeah.
No one
Okay.
actually takes this route. Only the nomads use it to get from one side of Afghanistan to the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
The correct way that most people do it is to go around the south, because
Yeah.
then you skirt around the mountains of Afghanistan.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's where we decided to go through the center,
Yeah.
just simply because, we're the All Terrain Overlanders and
Just for fun.
do something.
We gotta do it, right?
Yeah.
Also because there's this really cool minaret, like this 1,000-year-old tower made out of bricks
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. And this thing was made during the Ghurid Empire a long, long time ago. And there was actually a city adjoining it, but the entire city was flattened by Genghis Khan when he invaded.
Right.
Yeah.
200
okay.
years after it was built. So you see this huge minaret just standing in the middle of a riverbed
Yeah.
with nothing else around it. And even the whole minaret, 65 meters tall, it's like a 20-story building, is leaning over on its side. So like any
Wow.
moment now, it could fall over as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? We gotta do this and we gotta see this thing in
Yeah.
person, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that was one of the craziest rides, if not the craziest part of the whole trip, because
Yeah.
people told us straight up, like, if you go there, you're gonna get kidnapped and die.
Yeah.
People
okay.
told us
Yeah.
we were gonna get robbed,
Yeah.
and bikers who had already done it said, "Don't go there. It's not worth the time. It was horrible." Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so all the more we were like, we need to do this
Yeah.
now. And we did a lot of research as we started to approach the place. We kept asking people how was the road ahead and stuff like that, and we actually managed to pull it off.
Yeah, and I
And,
really enjoyed it actually. I think
Yeah.
we thrive on like challenging ourselves through these difficult situations.
Yeah.
Sounds a bit sadistic, but we kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To like rough it out, just for a few days.
Yeah.
Because we know that there's like light at the end of the tunnel. We can, check into a nice hotel. When we reach the town on the other side. But these few, 3-4 days in the central route was one of the most exciting, journeys we've had.
Okay.
Was there anything about the country that surprised you, like when you went there? You kind
We're
of
talking
like-
about Afghanistan.
Yeah, Afghanistan,
in
yeah.
particular.
Okay, so just to carry on the central route a little bit.
Yeah.
So imagine you're in Kabul. Kabul is kind of like if you've been to a smaller city in India or Pakistan, it's practically the same thing.
Okay.
It's bustling, it's chaotic, it's a mix of cultures of the local region. So, you're going to get yourself a biryani. In fact, I ate a really nice roti prata in Kabul. I think
Okay.
it's the best roti prata I've
Yeah.
eaten.
Yeah.
You
Kosong.
know,
With egg?
kosong.
Yeah.
Kosong.
Okay.
With chicken curry. And it was really good.
Yeah.
So surprisingly, there was a lot going on there. We had a mala restaurant there as well. We
Really?
ate at the first
Lanzhou beef noodle.
Wow.
Not to be
restaurant.
noodle in
Yeah,
Kabul.
in
Kabul.
Kabul. run
Gotta
by
put that on my itinerary.
Yeah, you should.
they're run by Chinese nationals who just decided to start up business in
Right.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They came from Urumqi
Okay.
in Xinjiang and they moved over to Afghanistan. And well, I also had a dental appointment in Afghanistan. Like I
Okay.
got my teeth cleaned. So it was
Okay.
on one day when I just felt bored and I saw a huge banner, really nice banner showing, teeth. And I called up that WhatsApp number and I said, "Do you take appointment from, a woman? I'm a foreign woman."
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Because services for women there aren't very extensive. For
Yes.
example, hair salons, facial and beauty salons are all prohibited in Afghanistan. So I just asked, how about just, cleaning my teeth? And they said, "Yeah, sure. Where are you from? And you're a female?" I said, "Yes." Then they said, "Okay, you need to set a specific appointment with you because we need to find you a female dentist."
Okay.
Yeah. And so they did, and it only cost me $20 Sing dollars.
Wow.
20 Singapore dollars to get it, thoroughly clean. Yep.
You're very happy with the service and the
Yep.
results. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So yeah, that's another thing for your itinerary.
Yeah.
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 Go-
So Lanzo, beef noodles, and dentist.
yeah,
Yeah,
get your
true.
dental stuff done there. Much
Yeah.
cheaper than Singapore.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Since you brought it up, like, was it dangerous as a woman in Afghanistan? Because I mean, we hear lots of stories in the news about what the Taliban government is like and how they're potentially oppressive to like women and things like that.
Yes, I would say so for women. Doesn't matter whether you're a foreigner or a local woman. I think as a foreign woman in Afghanistan, you certainly face a certain degree of harassment.
Yeah.
Although I was covered up in a long, loose-fitting dress called an abaya as well as a hijab, and sometimes I would wear a face mask.
Okay. Oh wow.
The slight exposure of my hands, my hands and a bit of my face just gave so much, unwanted attention from men. It could just be, they were just being curious, innocently curious.
Yeah.
To those who were, borderline harassing me, like leaning over my bike, trying to talk to me, or just following us around, which was a bit, nerve-wracking or cause some uneasiness.
Yeah, of course.
So it was very definitely useful and helpful to have Haren around by my side all the time,
Yeah.
except for the time I went for my dental checkup. To just
What were you
pose as
doing? You
my
didn't want to
husband.
get the dentist.
He was having a nap.
Oh, I see.
Oh no,
I
actually,
just had my prata, so I was like, you know what?
This afternoon.
I'll
nap,
leave you
yeah.
to it. But if anything happens, honestly, I only let her go there because the dentist was really close to the hotel.
Okay.
Right.
And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, it's the main street of Kabul. Nothing is really gonna happen there along this main street, like the main shopping street. Imagine the Orchard Road of Kabul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kinda.
yeah.
So yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you were. Yeah, you
No,
were.
no. So in general, I had to put on my best behavior whenever I dealt with authorities. Just to make sure that I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was respectful of their customs and local rules for women as well to cover up. Basically, whenever we interacted with the Taliban officers at the checkpoints or any authorities at the ministries, Haren would be the one fronting all interactions and conversations because it may seem disrespectful for a woman to speak up and voice, her opinions or, even just to innocently show paperwork and permits to
Yeah.
these authorities.
Right.
So let the men do everything. I had to exercise a lot of self-discipline on that.
Yeah, I've got to
because-
say that sounds like it would have been really hard for you. I mean, legal counsel, like I can only imagine extremely intelligent and like independent.
Yeah.
I was definitely aware of all these rules against women, and we actually had a very interesting opportunity and chance to speak to some local women. So we invited them to our hotel in one
Yeah.
of the towns we were staying at, one of the smaller towns, and it was a private area, so we were comfortable in asking them, prying them with all sorts of questions like what sort of rules have the Taliban placed against women, what are your thoughts about it. So some of the common ones are music is not allowed in Afghanistan, whether you're
Okay.
male or female.
All kinds of music.
All kinds, with like even their traditional musical instruments like their
Oh, wow,
dombra
okay.
and drums and things like that. And one of the waiters at our hotel in that little town used to be a musician, and he said that he had to burn all his
no.
instruments off before the Taliban came to raid his home. And some other restrictions faced by women are they would have to stop education at primary 6. So I asked them, after primary 6, you're only 10 or 11 years old, what do you do after that?
Mm.
And they said we get married and have a family, or we stay at home and just help our families with household chores.
Yeah.
And I said, is that the life you want to have? And they said no. And we were very, surprised that these were ladies who, had huge inspirations to become artists, dancers, teachers, and so on. And when we asked them, so what are you doing for yourselves to get out of this sort of lifestyle, or, to set out a life of your own to, pursue these aspirations?
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that we learned was they were learning English through online courses, and they were using English as a stepping stone to then probably later on move to India or the UK and then pursue their career from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a huge risk they're taking by learning English online, because they said that in some provinces in Afghanistan, the Taliban would not be happy about it and might put them in jail or suppress them in some ways.
Yeah, something you said earlier reminded me of like experiences that I had in India and like Pakistan as well. Like as a Chinese person with like tattoos, like I would just be somewhere and like a crowd of people would just be coming up to me, asking me for photos, following me around. That one, I can only imagine that must be like crazy intimidating as like a woman. I don't know, Taryn, you just came back from China not too long ago. Did you experience
No,
that?
I actually didn't have like an experience like that, but I have friends who are dark skinned and they go to China and it's like they've had been crowded by people and like, you can take a selfie, like stuff like that. That's been a thing.
Oh, when I was in China at the end of last year in Hainan, and I saw like there was like two African ladies, and like everyone was just taking photos of them.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of bizarre.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they must have just been tourists or something like that.
Yeah.
But robberies, I mean, Afghanistan's super scary, and like you mentioned, kidnapping, you guys weren't worried about that at all?
To be frank, I think we just played it really street smart.
Okay.
So, if anyone told us not to go somewhere, generally we didn't, except for the central,
The central route, yeah.
For the central route, we made sure that we had like a GPS communicator. So if anything went wrong, we could ping someone, even if we didn't have mobile reception.
Yeah.
And then we got the contacts of literally every person along the way, all the security checkposts and everything along the way. So in case anything happened, we could ring people up and get them to help us out. In fact, along the central route, the first night that we stayed in this town called Chakcharan, we actually stayed in a Taliban hotel.
Okay. Yeah. What is the Taliban hotel?
Okay, imagine there's a ministry called the Ministry of Information and Culture. That's where you need to get your permit stamped, right?
Yeah.
So you have a permit, you need to show up there and they actually like sign off on your permit. And then I asked the minister, like, hey, sir, where do I go to stay today evening? He's like, oh yeah, right next door is the best hotel in town. You'll find yourself very comfortable there. I'm like, okay, thank you so much. So I go around. It's basically like a 1-star. Like,
yeah, okay.
With
it's a
private
little
parking.
tiny room with a common toilet somewhere on the second floor or something. But it's a big building. It's a big building. And it seemed pretty busy when we got there. So I got there, put down our stuff, and I was like, sorry, where's the toilet? He's like, oh, upstairs, just you'll see it there. I'm like, okay. I go upstairs and there's actually like a Taliban convention happening.
Okay.
Guys are having a grand old meeting.
Like a conference.
Right? Conference.
Yeah, powwow.
Yeah, like a quick powwow. Yeah, just bring in all the regional warlords,
snacks. Little cocktail sandwiches.
The tea break, like.
So I go upstairs and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Lots of men, fully dressed in traditional gear.
Yeah.
Every kind of AK-47 ever made, every kind of M4 ever made. And I was like, whoa, I feel really safe here actually. Like, no one in their right mind is going to attack this hotel tonight. And I'm brushing myself past all these weapons and these gents. And I'm like, sorry guys. And I get myself to the toilet. And I felt pretty all right there. And along the way, we had these kind of weird incidents happen where you think we'd be unsafe, but actually we felt more safe than we thought we would feel.
Okay, Harry, you felt all right there. Nerine, did you feel okay in the Taliban hotel?
I was okay there, except my only complaint was the room we had, right? Had these large glass panels.
Yeah.
And you think you have, opaque curtains to ensure privacy, but the curtains were translucent.
Oh.
Yeah, so at night when we were having our dinner in the room, because for privacy reasons, we switched on the lights and had our dinner. People would be walking around outside and like peering into our room. Yeah, so that was a bit, uncomfortable for me, because in their culture, they're not supposed to, I think, look at women so so glaringly like that. Yeah. But I think in general, while the Taliban has restrictions against local women, they definitely have cut off some slack for foreign women, especially foreign women with a male companion along.
Okay.
Yeah, so we felt very safe in some of these places we stayed at.
Yeah.
And as well, whenever we felt unsafe by, let's say, any form of harassment, we knew that we could always turn to the Taliban officers nearby or the checkpoints and just make a complaint.
Yeah, okay. And they would take care of they would actually attend to it.
Yes, they
Wow,
would.
okay.
So I'll give you an example. In the same, just before we reached this Taliban hotel, we were fueling up. And as usual, a crowd gathered, just like you said, everyone's curious, but everyone's really polite. They're all right. They're friendly. And they're like, hey, where are you guys from? Blah, 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 the usual stuff. And then there were these two guys on one motorbike that were kind of, you could tell that their vibe was off, right? They weren't exactly friendly. They were kind of like just shouting English phrases at us, like,
okay,
how much motorbike? I want your motorbike. Hey, just like catcalling us and stuff like that. And I was like, you know what, let's just ignore them for a while. But when we rode off, they started to ride around us in traffic, and started to carry, they started continuing this, catcalling and stuff like that. And at one point,
That's scary.
I got fed up. I was like, what's these guys' intentions, right? So I actually stopped the bike and I said, listen here, if you don't go away from here, I'm going to report you to the Taliban. Because I was going right to the ministry right after, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, he didn't seem very sure about what I said. But the thing is, I had to go into the ministry right after that.
Yeah.
So I rode right up to the ministry, shook hands with the guards, and that guy disappeared just like that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they do provide a sense of security, but there's like,
But yes, correct.
there's like a big but there.
Yeah, it's
Sense
a big
of security
butt right now.
for foreigners.
For
And you can see
foreigners.
that the locals are terrified of them.
Right.
Did you ever consider buying an AK-47 to take with you throughout your trip in?
Yeah, you can't.
You can't.
I mean, you could probably if you really wanted to, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that.
I would have thought that it would be part of the amenities at the Taliban.
Open
You
the
just
drawer,
open the
big
drawer,
magazine of
like
AK-47.
listed on Agoda.
Part of the things that they
Automatic
provide.
weapons.
Yeah.
Provide.
Automatic weapons.
Here's
take-
your coupon for breakfast and also for the AK-47. Yeah.
So you had the Taliban sort of give you a kind of
They were like your your heroes almost at some.
A dubious sense of
security.
Keep an eye on
say
us.
that.
I don't think
Yeah,
they were
yeah.
heroes.
No, that's not. Yeah, I don't know if we want to put that out there, but yeah. Okay, go
but
on.
I mean, when you were entering Afghanistan, did, for instance, MFA or sort of any kind of consulate get in touch with you? About
Yeah,
that?
so we got in touch with them at first. You know that you can wherever you travel, it doesn't have to be these dangerous countries. You can actually electronically submit on the MFA website
Yeah,
where
right.
you're going to,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
in case of any natural disaster or
Yeah, so they know to look out for you basically if something happens. They
Yes,
know that
yes.
these people that they need to help evacuate or something
Yes.
like that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So we did that. I submitted it and I wasn't expecting anything from MFA. Usually they'll just send you a confirmation email, right? But all of a sudden, this guy from MFA, an officer, called me up on WhatsApp and said, hey, I'm so-and-so from MFA. Are you guys seriously entering Afghanistan and Iran? Do you not know that there's a war going on like in Iran right now? And we said, yeah, we're actually on our bikes and we're just trying to make a fast in, fast out kind of plan. That's what we told him. And we actually got our visas today for Afghanistan. So yes, we are going to enter Afghanistan. And he actually said, no, can you fly instead? Like just fly straight to Europe. And we're like, what about our bikes, So we said, no, we're actually carrying on with our plan. And then he said, well, this is MFA's advisory. We don't have any diplomatic mission or office in these countries. So if anything were to happen, it's very difficult for us to extract you out. So we knew of the risks and we told him, don't worry, we will keep you updated. And he actually created a WhatsApp group chat for both of us and a group of officers from MFA. And every day through Afghanistan and Iran, they would be reaching out to us asking, have you guys reached safely at your destination?
Wow.
How
okay.
long more?
Yeah.
And, they really took a good watch of us and they were also on our SOS call when we were using our Garmin InReach
Yeah.
so that, we could update them on days where we didn't have network.
Yeah.
So that was our experience with MFA and it was very smooth.
Yeah, they were really nice. They got everyone on board on the group chat, and we were traveling with this really awesome family called the Sabbatical Living Family.
Okay.
And that's Ritesh, Nisha, and Arisha, also from Singapore in their Land Rover Defender camper.
Right.
And we met these guys in Uzbekistan, and then we decided to travel through Afghanistan with them.
Oh,
and in the
okay.
end, we ended up traveling almost all the way to Istanbul with them.
Nice.
And Yeah, so we were all in this group chat together. And the thing is that I remember telling the guys on the MFA group chat that, yeah, we're just going to take like 6 days in Afghanistan and 6 days in Iran. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be out of there and out of your hair. And we ended up spending
21 days in Afghanistan. And
Like-
we maxed out our visa-free period in Iran, which is 15 days.
Yeah.
15
Okay.
days. So a month and a half later.
Why much longer than what you were planning to do?
I think because these two countries turned out fine when we were there.
Okay.
We didn't feel any form of tension against us or war tension in Iran, and also we weren't. I mean, don't call us reckless for doing this, but we also did a lot of research and talking to fellow locals and overlanders in these countries. When we crossed paths with overlanders who were coming from the opposite direction, we would ask them, "How is it up? How are things like up there in the town?" And if it was a good positive review, then we would take our time and slowly make our way there. But that being said, we were also very lucky because we actually escaped a few dangerous scenarios in Kabul. Like a few days after we left Kabul, there was actually a reported car bomb in a location just 100 to 200 meters away from a hotel.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we were very lucky in a
Yeah.
Also, another thing is there's just so much to see. So like when we went to Afghanistan, we thought like it's just going to be a big old desert and there's not going to be anything there.
Yeah.
But then we stopped at the Bamiyan Buddhas and we thought it was just Bamiyan Buddhas, but no, it's like there's so many other things to see there. Then we went to the Band-e-Amir National Park, which was just spectacular, like Grand Canyon, but Afghanistan version with lakes and naturally formed dams and everything. So there was so much to see that we realized we'll probably never come back here again.
Yeah.
Why are we rushing this? And since we're here, let's just spend a little extra time and fully see the place. So we earlier might have planned like to drop in, see the place and leave the next day, but it will become like drop in, see the place, or we really haven't seen it, we still need to explore, so stay another day, and then and so on. The itinerary start to stretch out.
How did MFA take to that when you were like, okay, I think we're gonna stay here for 21 days?
Sweating bullets.
I don't think they were too happy about it. They just kind of dealt with it. And thank
They're
you
like, okay,
for
guys, just do not give us any trouble.
Yeah.
So it's so
MFA
cool that they
offices-
started like a WhatsApp chat to just kind of keep track of like.
Maybe they just couldn't call me by, normal line because I was already in Uzbekistan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gosh.
I
Yes.
remember the moment we got out of Iran, we finally could ease off on being so like reporting style about everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we just started to talk about how we had the best prata in Kabul and
In
how
that
you
WhatsApp
guys
chat?
yeah, how
Setting
you
them
guys
right.
should make a plan to go down since you guys are from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You should see what it's like on the ground. We start sending like biryani recommendations on it was funny, but yeah, when it was active and they're actively monitoring us, we were very like down to like, okay, we are reaching here, Ritesh is reaching there, and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's, I guess, stuff that where your life was actually in danger. But how about like things like scams or like, I don't know. I feel like traveling through much of this part of the world, maybe like Southeast Asia as well, even, you're all, like people always asking for like bribes and things like that. Is that something you encountered a lot?
Okay. Scams wise, nothing so far.
I think we're quite
Okay.
sharp.
Haven't been
we-
scammed yet.
No.
I haven't been scammed yet.
Yeah.
There's a weird thing that happened where we feel we managed to scam a customs officer.
Okay.
So this is about basically an attempt for them for them to ask for a bribe from us. So basically, we show up at the Cambodia-Laos border, and we are in Cambodia crossing into Laos. So at first, the guy basically didn't want to let us across the border. He was like, "Nope, turn back," and we were like, "No, we know we can cross." And we had made this special document called the bike passport, which is basically an invitation by the Laos government to allow us to enter Laos.
Okay.
Right.
And we were like, "Hey,
It's called
we got
bike passport.
yeah, that's
Okay.
that's the kind of unofficial official name for
Okay.
it."
Right.
Okay.
So bike passport. So we show him like, "Hey, we got a bike passport from Laos. We are going to Laos today." He's like, "Oh, you have the bike passport." So clearly this changed things, right? And he's like, "Well, my system is not working. So you have to wait a while. Unless you can help me."
Okay.
It was so blatant. I was like, "Oh my God, he's so blatant about it."
Yeah.
I was like, "You know what? no. We'll wait till your system starts working. And then we got out our phones and we're just scrolling Facebook and we're just waiting for him. Basically, it's a waiting game, right?
Yeah.
Sooner or later, he's going to give up. It took about 45 minutes. And then finally, he's like, oh, I think my system is working. And in comes the guy, his assistant runs in, gets the thing done in 5 minutes flat. Like you could see he was doing absolutely nothing about it. In 5 minutes, he managed to sort it out.
Yeah.
All right, so we cleared the Cambodian side of customs. We went across to the Laotian side, right? And then right at the door, customs official is like, oh, okay, 2 Singaporean, 100 USD.
Whoa, okay.
We were like, for what? What is this for? And he just could not explain. He just said, for bike. And we said, we already have this bike passport, this letter of invitation. Your government is inviting us to your country. So what is this 100 USD for?
Yeah. So we're like, what is this 100 USD for? Like, you could see him thinking for a while. Okay, never mind, 50 USD. We're like, wait, hold on. You still haven't given us a reason what it's for.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, 30 USD. I'm like, no, I'm not paying any money. You guys have invited me. It says here on this invitation that you guys have invited us.
Yeah.
If you are going to charge me money, you talk to that guy who's left his phone number there. And if he says I need to pay money, I'll pay money. Okay. $3 per person.
Whoa, okay.
So 6
That's a
USD.
crazy discount.
All right.
I was like, $3 USD. I want a receipt.
Yeah.
Okay, receipt. So he actually gets out receipts. And I'm like, wow, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
People, like the market rate was supposed to be $30 or something. We're getting away with $3.
Yeah.
And he's going to give us a receipt. Bruh, he wrote the receipt and everything.
What's the item on the receipt? Like, how did it work?
It actually had an official stamp as well.
Okay.
I think it was temporary import for bike
Oh, okay.
and customs processing or something.
yeah,
like that.
customs processing.
So, 2 receipts.
Okay, yes.
Here you go. And the number was actually a fixed number. You couldn't edit the number in the receipt. It was a fixed little number. And he gave us the receipts. And we were like, what's just happened? He said $3 per person. So that's $6. But he's given us receipts for $8. So we've actually gotten a discount.
We're like, okay, run, let's go, let's get out of here.
The boys.
The accounts are short. He had to add like $2 in there.
So went back to his calculator. Wait, hold up.
So I'd say that was the only encounter we had where we were so blatantly asked for bribes.
Okay.
And in no other scenarios, even across Central Asia or Iran, Afghanistan, there were no such encounters. So everything happened smoothly for us.
Yeah.
A couple of times we had to run from the cops.
Run from the cops?
Yeah. So Kazakh cops, shout out to all my Kazakh friends because they themselves tell me Kazakh cops are the most corrupt.
Okay.
Nerine was going to dinner separately from me to the same place for dinner.
Okay.
So she's coming from a different part of town. I'm going for a different. Both of us get stopped by cops.
Okay.
We bring this situation up with our friend a couple of days later, and he's like, yeah, Kazakh cops will stop random motorbikes for no good reason. And it's actually against the law to stop you just for no good reason.
But what are they stopping you for? They're
Like, what are they saying?
Just we need to check your driving license or something
But
like
did they
that.
check? Did they check yours?
No.
Yeah, not at all. So
They
I was
just kind of stop us and then they look us over and then they make us go.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So
okay.
what we always do, what we always do is whenever we are being stopped by cops, we would straight away, speak in Chinese or like a language we know that they will not understand. So we go take out a helmet. Oh, ni hao, and you can see the confused look on their face.
Yeah.
Singapore, and we show them the passport. And for my case, the guy just eyeballed me top to toe after I said ni hao, and he realized he couldn't extract anything from me. So he said, go. Yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah. And then that same evening, my experience was different. I was stopped at a traffic light. I hadn't made anything wrong, anything weird. But this guy, you could see fancy bike has stopped at a traffic light. He's looking me over, walks right up to me, come over here, stop at the side. I'm like, what? I didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
You could see there was no real reason for him to pull me over. I pull over. He greets me in perfect Russian. Blah, 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 blah. I have no idea what he just said. Then the traffic light changes. You can see he's looking for his next prey. And he's like, wait here. And he goes off to get someone else, and I'm like, you know what? I ain't waiting here for nothing. I just take off.
So you just went off.
Yeah.
I just went off. So these were the kind of things where like, what are they stopping us for?
Yeah.
And our bikes aren't registered with that local system, so we just two of us. If you're confronting one cop, at least there's a bit more of energy there to
The pressure the cops.
the pressure there.
Yeah. The
Whoever
no
we are
speak
negotiating
English
with.
thing is like such a good
helps.
tactic.
Yes.
Because if it's not something serious, then like they won't follow through, right? Because why take the trouble to go and like, find someone to
exactly.
translate or something like that?
Yeah.
If they're just gonna
Exactly.
shake you down for money or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like easier
And
to shake down someone else.
And when they ask what language you speak, I always say Singaporean. And then I let them scroll Google Translate for 10 minutes
Yeah,
trying to
try to find the Singaporean language.
as a language.
Okay, rounding up the stuff about your trip. Strangest experience, mate. We can do a bit of quick fire or rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
Strangest experience that you guys had throughout the trip.
Strange. Flag? The flag.
I think the strangest experience would be in Afghanistan. We were in the Bandar Mir National Park. Big truck rocks up to the hotel, and it's a guy, like a family gets out. So there's two gentlemen. There's a young kid. There's a older girl, and then there's one of the gentleman's wives. So they all come out, and I see a nice truck, so I figured these guys must be somebody's.
Yeah.
I greet them nicely, and they very friendly greet us back. And I noticed one of the gentlemen has a scar that runs across his neck like that.
Okay.
A fresh
Like
one.
Literally.
A
pretty
like
fresh.
like
Like a
still
fresh
bleeding.
Like,
No, like
How
a,
fresh are
a-
we talking?
because it's like just heal. Like,
Just heal,
healed,
sorry,
like,
just healed, yeah.
raw scar, like
Wow.
Yeah,
fresh
okay.
scar. And we're like, hey, what happened here? It's like, so I'm here to take a quick vacay because someone just tried to kidnap me and slash my throat.
Oh my gosh.
And luckily my guys found me and managed to get me to the hospital and stitch me back up. And
Yes.
of course, like wrecked the days of whoever tried to kidnap me. But yeah, so basically actually this guy used to work pretty high up in the Taliban. He then left
Yeah.
and he started his own kind of security company.
Okay.
And he had nice cars, nice bikes. He was showing me his TikTok where he's riding out
A
with the
TikTok.
boys.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh yeah, Afghanistan's big on social media.
Yeah.
And and then I was like, whoa, this is pretty crazy. Like this is the kind of stuff that only really happens in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I mean, one moment you're riding your bike, you're doing burnouts with the boys. Next moment you've been kidnapped, your neck has been slashed. Next moment your guys managed to get you and actually stitch you back up
Yeah.
before you die. I mean, like, whoa, that was pretty strange.
And so he got kidnapped, nearly killed, and he went on a vacation to decompress. And
Yeah,
You would need a vacation
Yeah.
to decompress after something.
The
kinda-
dude looked like normal, like he spoke great. Everyone seemed like normal. If no one had asked him about that, you
Yes,
think that it's an age-old thing or maybe
So now you guys are back in Singapore. Is it because of the winter in Europe? Are you taking a break
Yes.
because of that?
Yeah.
Like icy
escaping
roads?
winter in Europe, Chinese New Year, and also
Oh, yes.
repacking our gear because we're going to bring our camping stuff this year.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Tell us about that. Why the camping stuff this time around when you've been staying at hotels the whole way?
Mainly because it's going to be really expensive in Europe and the UK.
Right. Yeah,
So again,
okay.
budgeting that is very important. Budgeting is really important to help us have a longer trip. So if we want to extend our trip and we have more budget ahead, yeah, we can do that. So right now we are going to pack along our camp gear, our tent, sleeping bags, sleeping pads. We're going to remove some of the clothes we don't need.
Yeah.
It's going to get cold as well up in Norway when we get there in June. So we are going to just reshuffle a bit of our pack list.
Yeah. Tell us about that. Like this second leg, I guess, of your trip, right? What is the route that you roughly have planned out?
Yeah. So this year we're going to fly into Bulgaria again. We're gonna pick up our bikes. Shout out to Violetta, the lady who's let us park our bikes in her garage. She herself being an overlander.
Okay.
Solo overlander. So we're going to pick up the bikes from there. We're going to go down to Greece and then head up through the Balkans to North Cape, the northernmost point of Europe.
Yeah.
And then from there, we'll work our way down through the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, down to the UK, spend a few months in the UK, then spend a few months in Southern Europe, and then finally wrap up this year in Morocco.
In Morocco. Okay.
Yeah, that's
and
the
then
plan.
your ultimate plan, as I understand it, is to make it to South Africa.
Yes,
that will be
correct.
for 2026.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds nuts. I feel like Africa will be a...
Oh, that will be
Yeah.
a real adventure.
Yeah, I heard that. Aren't there like parts of Africa that are like crazy, like even more dangerous than Afghanistan? Like
I think
certain parts
Sudan,
where it's like lawless
Congo, yeah.
Well-
But there have been recent overlanders who have done it. And we also have a fellow Singaporean guy called Rahim Resat who is currently in the African continent. So I think it's doable. You just have to really be mindful of what are the conflicts and dangers in the area and avoid those places.
Yeah.
So I think plans will change along the way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might be easier to get a AK-47 in parts of Africa than Afghanistan.
Pack that along.
Just have it on your back.
We'll see, but you won't see any pictures of it on Instagram.
Yeah.
Maybe at another podcast when we're back.
Yeah.
You get some notifications from that WhatsApp group again. Like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys are going where?
MFA officer is like, oh, you
Safe
again.
officer.
You again.
Hey, MFA, I'm safe now. Don't worry about me.
You got like a dedicated team at MFA looking after you guys.
The chat is still active.
Nuts. I mean, so now that you're back in Singapore and you're reflecting on like, I don't know, the first part of your trip, how do you guys feel? Do you feel like you've changed in any way?
Yes, for sure. I think one thing is that I've understood that different countries might have different narratives about how the world works and
Okay.
about history, right? For example, you'll have the ex-Soviet countries, they will have a certain narrative about things. You'll have like, if you guys have been to Vietnam, you hear their narrative of the Vietnam War is a very different one to what the US is going to say, right? And so traveling across all these countries, we've picked up on the different narratives, the different stories they like to tell their citizens and things like that.
Yeah.
And then just pick up and kind of compile it all together into one big new narrative that we have seen for ourselves, right? And I think that has created, just a higher level of understanding of what's kind of going on in the world. Yeah. Yeah.
Was there anything surprising that you learned about yourself throughout the trip?
Being a better planner, we are very adaptable to different situations as well. He's a very easygoing traveler, and I think I've learned a lot from him as well.
Yeah.
But in general, when we interact with the local communities and hear their stories, their backgrounds, and really try to appreciate the different struggles they've had growing up or their forefathers had growing up, really humbles us a lot. And it makes me reflect back on, what a lucky person I am to be, to be born and bred in Singapore in such a privileged society.
Yeah.
Things like having electricity, warm water, internet, 5G. These are really luxurious parts of our lives that a lot of places in the world, they don't even have these things.
Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing about your story. I wish we could just spend the whole time talking about your trip and like your future plans and things like that, but this is an advice show, so we need to spend some time at least answering questions from our audience. And for you guys, if you are watching this right now, if you have a question, if there's some sort of weight on your chest, you can write into us at the link that's on your screen right now. You can find that same link in our show description. Write into us, and who knows, we might get to your question and try to answer it. Okay, so we have a question here that I think would be fun to answer with you guys. It's from audience member, just using the name Leong. Leong writes, how to quarrel with your partner in a good way or in a more meaningful way? How to quarrel with your partner in a good way or in a more meaningful way?
I have something to say about this question itself. How to quarrel with your partner? I think it sounds like this person wants a fight already.
Leading question.
It's like the quarrel is inevitable.
I mean, maybe they have issues that they need to address. There's something they got to get off their chest, right?
Leong, you need to first stop quarreling.
Wait, okay, before we answer that question, I want to ask you guys, how long had you guys been seeing each other, dating, before you embarked on this trip?
Mid 2021, so that has been about 2.5
Okay.
years.
Okay, yeah, so going solid for quite a while, right? Okay, so I guess you probably don't want to take a trip like this with someone you've just met, right? But because then you learn a lot about that person in a very short period of time. Okay, but I mean, the reason why I thought this question would be fun with you guys is, whenever you travel with someone, if that's just a friend, a colleague, or a romantic partner, you always learn more about them, I guess, than if you were just like going on dates with them or just hanging out with them.
For sure.
So and you get tired, you get stressed. It reveals a different side of people. So, I mean, I'm sure throughout your, 11 months traveling, there must have been moments of tension at the very least.
Okay, so I think just to rephrase things, how do we raise
Very loyal of
our issues in a constructive and effective manner?
Yeah.
Right. I think firstly it's really communication. You have to put aside your emotions. I know that is probably one of the most difficult parts because you are also pent up with anger, maybe resentment, sadness, and you just have to put them away and maybe write them down and put them in point forms as to what are the issues that we have to talk about. And for me personally, there has been very tense situations in our trip.
Can you tell us a bit about some of those? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure. And I would say that most of these tension in the situations are caused by external factors.
Okay.
It could be something as lame as the weather being too hot or too cold, and I'm just getting very angsty, wanting to get out of that scenario. Or it could just be, other people like officials, authorities, maybe giving us stress, causing stress to the relationship. Okay, so just to give you an example of a situation where I was very close to breaking down because of my own emotions, right? We were doing a lot of off-roading, having a lot of fun in Thailand. And I had dropped my bike quite a few times that day. And each time I dropped my bike, Haren would have to come and rescue me. And, he would usually tell me, okay, this is how you should tackle this slope, and give me a full lecture or a training course on how I should overcome that obstacle.
Yeah.
So it can be really overwhelming for me. And towards the end of the day, I was more mentally exhausted than physically tired. And somehow I just dropped my bike for that one last time when we were just 100 meters away from the road. And I think he was also very tired, watching out for me and all that. And he went, you dropped your bike again? Why did you drop? It looks so easy. And it was a very innocent comment.
Yeah.
And it was a legitimate comment as well because it was really a very easy trek. And I just happened to drop my bike. And I just broke down. I just cried. I started tearing, but everything was, in a helmet. So I tried not to let him notice that. And I really wanted to get it out of my chest later that night. Like I was typing on my phone, like I said earlier, write down in point form. So what do you want to talk about, right? So I typed down on my phone.
Getting the legal argument ready.
It's wartime. So I typed out certain things that he could have improved on and all that. And I think I just let it sit for a couple of hours because I wanted my emotions to just set and not be so highly charged with emotions, especially your negative emotions at the time. And I actually went back to that memo on my phone and edited some of the things I wanted to say. Because I realized, this point is a bit too, like I was trying to attack him in some way. So it's not nice to really say it in this way. I can rephrase it. And then I think later on, or maybe a few days later, I just kind of indicated to him that, maybe next time when we are in this sort of off-road, full day off-road journey, instead of, telling me and instructing me on how I can improve on becoming a better rider at that point, it can be really overwhelming. Maybe we just do a debrief later on. And I think that has worked out very well between us because it's much easier on me. He is much easier on me in future rides. And we just communicate much better from now. So he understands what my needs are. And I think that really helped us along the way.
Yeah. Haren, anything from you on that point?
I think in general, traveling makes you comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so Nerine has traveled a lot, so she's really comfortable being uncomfortable. I'm also really comfortable being uncomfortable. So that way, there's really nothing much externally that gets to us. And so this was an example of an external thing that affects us, right? Then we can talk about internal things. Of course, internal means that I'm trying to be as patient as I can. I understand where she's coming from as well. You know, if she's feeling hot or grumpy because it's hot outside or because she's been dropping her bike a lot or something, I have to understand that that's just how it is. It's just we chose this adventure for ourselves. Today is not our day or whatever, but sooner or later, as long as we don't flare up, as long as we maintain that mature emotional mindset, we'll be all right at the end of it. And of course, when problems arise, I think the most important, like I've said, is the solution-oriented mindset. We don't start blaming each other or start yelling at each other even though we're angry about something else. We just focus on getting the thing sorted and moving on. I mean, after all, it's all about teamwork. It's really
Yeah.
all teamwork.
I think because you guys are on this like crazy like you can't have a massive argument in the middle of Afghanistan
And walk off.
and then like, I'm just gonna walk into those mountains over there and like, I'll see you in like 2 hours
Yeah,
time.
exactly. So one thing I really keep reminding myself is whenever I'm upset about something which may be related to Haren, I ask myself, are his actions and words doing some are his actions and words basically showing that he is really trying to make the situation better for both of us?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then don't make a big deal out of it, Just move on, or speak to him nicely after that. There's no need to vent my frustrations on him and say, hey, that's your fault, Yeah.
Okay, so for Leong, you should think about what you want to say, right? Like write it down, even maybe in point form. Try and take the emotion out of it. And then I think definitely the way that you say it, that one really rings true for me. Because sometimes when I have quarrels with my partner, it's not even about the things. It's sometimes just about the way that we're talking to each other.
Yes.
That makes it worse. So that's a good one for myself as well, but also for you, Leong.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us on Help Desk. I think we really appreciate you guys sharing so candidly about your stories. Where can people continue to follow your journey, because you're restarting it again soon, right?
Yes,
Yeah. We are very active, or most active on Instagram. We are All Terrain Overlanders.
Yeah. That's an Instagram handle. That's an
Yes.
Instagram username.
Instagram and Facebook as well. And we are kind of starting out on YouTube. We have just one video on our All Terrain Overlanders YouTube channel. But when we get to it, when we have time, we'll probably do a short series on Afghanistan and Iran.
Yeah, that'd be so
I think
interesting.
that would be interesting.
I would be very keen to watch that.
Yeah.
And
And of course,
Go on.
I was just going to say that, if anyone is interested in getting to know more about motorcycle touring, or just wants some advice on motorbikes or traveling, or wants to go to some of the places we've been to, wants an itinerary or an idea of what to do, or wants to join us, you happen to be somewhere near where we are and want to join up with us, hang out with us, just feel free to go ahead and ping us on our Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, very nice, very generous of you guys. Thank you so much once again for joining us. Thank you to Audio-Technica for powering this podcast. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
bye-bye.